Hi traders, what's going on? And welcome back to IFX Success. And today we're going to talk about the MACD. How can we find the best entries using the higher time frame MACD, using the reversal blocks, or using the trend block? So we're going to be using the block entries using for the MACD or the trend block. Pretty much I left it alone, but pretty much it's all the same. They behave differently, but you're going to get somewhat the same results. So I'm going to use the block entry examples, and we're also gonna mix it up with the higher time frame blocks or moving averages to see what type of results are we going to get, how we can better our results using the EA, or even if you trade manually. Remember, all of these strategies work on any time frame that you desire and work on any type of instrument. You can trade Forex, you can trade indices, you can trade metals, and you can even trade crypto with this. So let's start over right now on how we can actually understand the MACD. The MACD has a lot of features, and there are different type of MACDs that have the crossing lines and everything like that. So this is going to be the one that's on the MT4. We're going to use the setup that is given by the MT4, which is the 12, 26, and 9. So it's going to be very simple. We're just going to leave it as is. And the way we're going to use the MACD, it's going to be pullback entries, more or less trend entries. Okay, so it's going to be very simple. On another video, we're going to talk about divergence, which is another strategy that we're going to be using. So right now, the way we're going to use this is very simple. All we're doing is that whenever the MACD bars crosses to above or below the zero, this is going to be the zero line right here, then we're going to be looking for pullback entries. So for example, right over here we had a MACD crossing over the zero line, so then anything after that we will be looking for pullback entries. And again, what are pullback entries? So whenever the MACD is still below the zero line, we're going to wait for the price to pull back, to give us to move back up, to give us some entries to be able to sell. So over here, the MACD has been pretty much steady being under the zero line. So we should have been able to get entries, right, to the sell entries. So of course, when the MACD stays like this for a long period of time, that is much easier to find entries, but of course it doesn't happen all the time. And sometimes we can get that it crosses above and below the zero very frequently. This is looking at 4 hours right now. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at 4-hour time frame. This is $0 right now, so we're going to be looking at 4-hour time frame and then going down to a smaller time frame, which is going to be 15 minutes. So again, over here on this example, we can see the first bar crossing the zero line. So then anything after that, what we're going to be looking for is pullback entries, right? We're waiting for the market to come down a little bit and looking for buying opportunities as long as the MACD stays above the zero line. So that is pretty much what we're looking for. Like I said, there will be times when the MACD goes up and down very frequently. Let me look for some examples that you pretty much won't get any pullback entries. So like over here, the MACD crossed below the zero line, but unfortunately it went down very straight down. It never gave us pretty much a pullback entry. And then when we got a pullback entry, which was more or less like around here, the MACD was already crossing above the zero. So, there will be times when we might not get an entry using the EA, right? So if you want to enter on your own, that is something else. But of course, what we want is pullback entries when the MACD is, if we want to sell, below the zero, if we want to buy above the zero line. So like right over here is another example. The MACD crossed the zero line, and then all we're waiting is pullback entries like this. The market drastically moves downwards. As long as the MACD is still upwards, then we can look for buying opportunities. So that is going to be pretty much the strategy they're going to be using in here. And it's going to be very, like I said, very simple. And this is more or less when the market is trending, right? So over here we have one example using the EA. And we got over here, I counted 10 entries from here. I didn't count this one right over here. So I counted 10 entries. So as long as the MACD was above or below the 0 line. So we used the M15 reversal block with the 80 settings. We used the standard MACD on H4 and we got 10 entries on here. Again, I didn't count this one. So over here we got buy entries already, right? But you know, again, like we have talked about on the previous videos, a trend is going to end, you know, a trend cannot go forever, right? So you always have to know how much has a trend has gone up, and you know, is it gonna eventually gonna turn around? So how do you look for that? You know, you have to look for a higher time frame block, or you have to look for some support and resistance. You know, again, you need to understand that a trend does not go on forever and eventually has to turn around, right? The same thing, if the market is going down, eventually has to turn around. So there are times when we get longer trends that it runs for weeks and weeks, and that all depends on market conditions, news, and such. So right here, we definitely got some really good selling opportunities in here that are, you know, one after the other. Again, we're looking at 15 minutes, right, entries. This is all 15-minute entries, but we're looking at the 4-hour time frame right now. So, you know, there are times when the EA gives us entries when we really haven't had enough of a pullback, right? So like this one was a really good entry because we had enough pullback in order to come back down again, right? The same thing when we compare to this one and this one. This one had a small pullback, but this one has a higher pullback, and eventually the trade was much better, right? We could have captured all of this. So, and then again here now, finally, what is the market doing? Eventually looks like now is going to turn around. So I would say, again, look for 3, the most to 4 pullbacks on, you know, on a trending market, because after that, you know, something can go wrong, right? It can eventually turn around, and that's when we look for something else. So like right over here, again, we're going to talk about divergence, but right over here, the market went lower, but on the MACD kept on going higher. So this is already a preview we're going to be talking about on a later video, and that is, you know, divergence. Divergence is giving us a hint that the market probably is going to be turning around, right? So this is very, very important, you know, when you have actually understand what divergence is and how does it work. So this is one example, just using simple, very simple filters, you know, just the M15 and then using the H4 MACD for trend, right, for pullback entries. Now let's kind of see what we get. We just have 3 examples just to kind of keep it simple. So in here, we're using the M15 reversal block with the 80 settings, the same MACD on H4, but now what we did is we added the daily 72 moving average. So I'm going to go down up to the daily moving average. So what that means is that whenever the price is either above or below the moving average and also going along with the MACD, we're going to get entries. So right over here, unfortunately, we got a buying entry because we already had a candle crossing above the 72 exponential moving average, and then after that it crossed back down again, and anything after that we just kept getting selling and selling opportunities. So that was very neat, you know. So pretty much that's what we're doing, you know. So if you would like to trade a smaller time frame, what would you do? You know, if you want to trade 5 minutes, then I would suggest using 1 hour MACD, and then maybe using 4 hour you know, as a trend of moving average, or you can even use the daily moving average as well, the one that we have over here. We talked about on the previous video pretty much moving averages, you know, how we can use them. We have different ones that we can use different days. We have the 200, which is the commonly used for trend. We also have the 50. So that's something that you have to really play around with and see what type of results are you going to get. So here's another example. Again, we just have to be a little bit creative and kind of test it out. Again, this is very few days of testing. You know, one of the things is I'm going to show you now what is testing from more than 6 months, of what type of results are we can we get, and how we can test on the EA that we can actually vary, what kind of entries are we looking for really, right? So in here, all I did was the M15 reversal block, again, the same thing, but now I used the MACD, like the same settings. The only thing that I added in here was the higher time frame reversal block, the 4-hour reversal block with 20 days and with 100 settings. So whenever we also have a block, that's already giving me, a reversal on a trend. So that's already giving me heads up that we already reversing. We shouldn't be looking for any buying opportunities anymore after this block. But whenever the MACD is already below the zero line, then we're going to be looking for selling entries, anything after that. So we got 6 entries in here that were really good. Right here, this was the first block that we got, and that's why we didn't get any more entries, because we got a bullish reversal block in here. And the market went up, eventually fell to keep on going higher. It went down again and it gave us another block. And then now finally it might seem that it can eventually go up, right? But so the main idea in here is also following higher time frame. But the main idea is just pretty much saying, hey, okay, give me a block. Whenever we have a block, that's already a hint of a reversal. And then after that, anything when the MACD is below or above the line, right? So that's, in here, 6 entries, I think is really, really good. It's good to actually have that extra filter just to kind of give me an idea of what is going on with the market, so I don't get so many crazy entries, right? Like over here on our first example, we got 10 entries where we know some of them were not really the best entries. And then here, using the daily exponential moving average, we pretty much got 11 entries, so more or less the same as the previous example. So now let's take a look at some settings in here, some different strategies that I have used on the EA that you can actually do it on your own as well, so you can have an idea of what is going on. So over here, we have different type of strategies, strategy 1 to 4. We use a lot size of 0.02, and I used the pair of pound dollar, and then the entry time frame was 15 minutes on every single type of strategy. And we also used the reversal block for every single one of them. Now, what I was playing around was with the block settings, 80, 100, and 60 over here. So now, and I used different type of filters. So for this example, strategy 1, I used the higher time frame block settings, the 4-hour reversal block with 100 settings with 20 days. I didn't use filter number 4, which is an MA. I used the filter number 5, which is the MACD, and filter number 7 was not used in here. This is something that we're going to talk about later on, spacing between trades, whenever it's going to open in between trades, so it doesn't open too close together within the same price range. So we're giving it like at least 25% of ADR. Take profit will be 30% of ADR. Averaging, yes, this is something that we're going to talk about on next following videos. Target as an averaging will be 65% of ADR. Hedging, we're going to be using hedging as well. And here, pretty much, this is very simple. It's just, we're allowing buying and selling opportunities at the same time, right? But again, this is going to be more advanced on the following videos. Right now, this is just pretty much how I ran it. So the drawdown percentage in here was 2%. 57 trades, profit factor 3.85, and the profit was $180. And I just ran it from January 1st to now, to October 10th. So that's not bad. Of course, you might say, oh my God, 180, but then you also have to compare, you're not only trading one pair, you're going to be trading multiple pairs, right? So that's something that you need to keep in mind and understand. So right now, we have a second strategy right over here, which it's going to be using now. I'm not going to be using the higher time frame block. I'm going to be using now 15-minute 13 simple moving average as a filter, filter number 4. I left the MACD the same. And I change it up in here now, space between trades 50%, and the TP one was less, was 20%. And then what I did is I got a drawdown of 1%. I got more trades in here of 79 trades. Profit factor was pretty high, and then profit was only $186. So it was just a little bit more, but the best thing about in here was that the drawdown was definitely 1% less, that is quite a lot if you're trading in multiple pairs. So this was good, overall this one was one of the best ones. So in here, the third example, I increased the block settings, and then in here I added filter number 7, which is the higher time frame MA, which daily 72 EMA, right? And I kept these settings more or less compared to the previous first example, just to kind of see what we get. And the drawdown was way less. We got way less trades, and we got $136 in here as a profit. So what I want you to take a look in here is just that how many entries, if you're trading, depending on what type of trader you are, if you're a scalper, if you're a person who doesn't have much time to trade, that you want to try to let the EA do a lot of the work for you, although you do have to be present, most of the time, whether from your phone or your tablet or your computer, to be able to see what is going on. You can't just let it be, come back in 3 or 4 days and see what, what the EA has done for you. But more or less, how many entries would you like to get is depending on what type of filters you are using, right? And then on the last example that I did in here is that I reduced this settings to 60, and I used the same exact settings for number 3, strategy number 3. The only difference that I changed was 60. And take a look at the big difference in here. The reversal block settings is very, very important. That alone is one filter that is really going to change your entries, okay? So in here, we kept the same exact thing of the settings, and then look at the drawdown. Now it increased because it definitely got me into more entries. So from 39 to 65, but the drawdown increased by a lot. And unfortunately, even if that was a lot, I was hoping for a better profit, but it didn't give me much more profit. It was 90 because I think there were a lot of trades that were still open. So, by the time it closed down, obviously closed with some negative trades because, there were recent entries that didn't close by the time I closed in here. So it was $90 compared to this one, more trades and more exposure. So that is something that is really interesting that you need to take into account when you're setting your blocks. What type of settings, the lower the number, the more entries you're going to get, and the higher the number, less entries you're going to get. So please keep that in mind, just to kind of see what is it that you're looking for. Always test it out on the EA tester just to kind of see what is it. So pretty much, this is very simple. Moving forward, I'm going to show you again, when I show you examples, what are we going to, what type of strategies we should be using, and kind of more or less give you an idea of what you want to look for, right? And more ahead, when we have more videos, when we talk about the extremes, RSI and ADR, then we're going to be able to mix and match more of those combinations and just kind of see what type of what kind of results are we going to get. But in here, it's not that bad. The results using the MACD as a trend, as a pullback entries, it's not that bad. It has performed very well. The drawdown percentage is not that bad. Of course, this is a small date range, and moving forward, market changes over the years. We can have more trending markets or more ranging markets in some years. So it does affect when you test it back, but at least if you have 1 or 2 years, you can have an idea of how we can move forward, right? So that's, just keep that in mind. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Let me know what type of other strategies would you like to see. If you want to see different type of examples, always write in the comments below, or you can also go into the Telegram channel and write all the questions and concerns that you may have. And that is also to have an idea what type of videos would you like me to do in the future. So that's pretty much it when it comes down to the MACD. So it's very simple strategy, very simple, kind of following. You don't have to go crazy. All we're doing is looking at the how is the MACD behaving, and if it's trending, then all we're doing is looking for pullback entries, and then we go down to 15 minutes to be looking for those block entries, right? Whether it's the reversal block or the trend block. All right, traders, subscribe to the channel. Leave any comments, like the video, and I will see you in the next following videos.